of a sudden they turned it on in the second half, and a couple things just watching him from a technical standpoint. Set your feet and throw the ball. Don't always throw the ball with your feet up off the ground and your body going one way and your arm going the other. He did make some really good throws moving out of the pocket. You saw the athleticism. You saw everything we saw at his pro day. And then you saw a very accurate player who took some, a little bit off the ball when he needed to, like on that little shallow cross to Randall Cobb for the touchdown. It was right out in front of him. It was a very catchable ball. And even Randall Cobb, who looks like he's running like a 4.9 now,
he's
caught
lucky.
the ball and scored a touchdown. So give Zach Wilson all the credit in the world for his performance yesterday. Here's the thing. He looked like he was playing like he had a chip on his shoulder, like he was out there trying to prove something and playing at a competitive level. Like there was a compete in him that we haven't really seen. Because I think the confidence gets shattered in the middle of these games when they go haywire. And yesterday I thought for a minute there after he fumbled the ball when he was running with it, I'm like, oh God, here we go again. This is going to remind me of the Chiefs game when he dropped the snap. But this time he came back from it, and he wasn't overwhelmed by the fact that he had just made a mistake. And it was a physical run for a quarterback that took a hit that he didn't need to take. But he came back from that part of it, which was good. That's a part of being a quarterback, being able to put the bad plays behind you and then come back and still put points on the board. And putting points on the board is the most important thing a quarterback can do. And he got a lot of support from a great defensive effort yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they were all over C.J. Stroud, and there were 5 guys who got hurt by Houston Texans, and all 5 are starters. And I don't know if it's the field. I don't know what it is. It'd be interesting to hear the Houston perspective on this. But once C.J. Stroud went out, they had no chance. Davis Mills was not going to lead a team that didn't have Nico Collins and didn't have Tank Dell on it. So this is a team that got beat up pretty good by the Jet defense.
Yeah, and the importance of this win doesn't really carry over much past making the locker room feel better. Rob Saleh gets some pressure off him. Zach Wilson gets his pressure off. I don't really think that in the grand scheme of things, we're going to look back on this particular win and say, things really changed when the Jets beat the Texans and Zach Wilson's career took a different trajectory. There we go. So I don't think we're going to say that. I still don't think that Zach Wilson's going to be on this team next year. But what was really, really important yesterday was the avalanche was stopped. This Jet negative avalanche stopped. Rob Saleh with the Joe Beningo text messages, the Athletic reporter Zach Wilson being reluctant to play, all the nonsense that was going, they finally got a win, and then the microscope is not going to be so intense on them. The seat is not going to be as hot for Rob Saleh this week, and maybe that turns into a couple more wins as the season goes on. But I mean, it's not to be a guy who's throwing a wet blanket on anything, but clearly it's too little too late for Zach Wilson to be playing like this.
Well, also coming out of Salt Lake City, out of a very reputable reporter, is that Zach Wilson was told that he was going to be traded in the offseason. So that comes out this weekend, and that was a credible report from a credible reporter who's probably knows somebody within the inner circle of Zach Wilson. And all of this stuff that's coming out about Zach Wilson, whether he's reluctant to play or he's going to be traded or this or that. Look, man, this kid's been through the grinder. I've never seen anything like it. I really haven't. I mean, he's been, everybody was hoping to see what they saw yesterday a lot earlier than they saw
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, even last year. Last year maybe hopefully would have been the year that he would have been able to do that, not go through what he went through last year at this time as he just went through it again and now is back. And now next week they have to go to Miami. So now you got to do it again. That's the thing. You got to do it again.
Like,
you
probably
can't just
won't.
have a one-off here, a one-off there. You got to try to do it as consistently as you possibly can. And maybe the Jets can trade him. I don't know. Phil yesterday said something. I think he has said it publicly, but he did say it in front of all of us. And I kind of agree with him that, he's going to end up in Kansas City with Andy Reid. Andy Reid's going to pick him up and just, take him off the scrap heap and just turn him into a quarterback.
Well, turn him into a quarterback that Andy Reid hopes never plays, because that means that Patrick Mahomes is hurt.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I definitely think he needs to go somewhere else, change the scenery. I don't think as a starter. I mean, unless he rattles off some crazy end of the season, which I don't necessarily expect. But I did like the fact there's been a lot of complaints about, Nate Hackett this, and the play calling's been horrendous. And I kind of did agree with that in the first half, where they didn't. The whole thing was he's going to play and let loose, and we're going to let loose, and we're not going to have any restraints. And in the first half, there was a ton of restraints. I mean, it was like run. Okay, we'll put him in a crappy situation on a third down where the Texans can tee off on the offensive line that stinks. It was like over and over again. And then finally in the second half, they were opening up a little bit more. And I understand it was raining and there was going to be a different game plan. But Zach Wilson showed throughout the entire game that the rain wasn't affecting him. And maybe that's when Nate Hackett said, all right, screw it, we're going to throw the ball now more. But it was like that first drive, they come out there, and it's like run, cook, and then end up throwing the ball. And it's like, you have to get off the field at 3 and out. And it just didn't feel right until they finally got him going and in a rhythm in the second half, and he looked like an NFL quarterback.
And he also hit Breece Hall out of the backfield quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, Breece Hall is obviously a difference maker. He and Garrett Wilson are their two difference makers, and both of them had their best games, both running and receiving. So, I mean, all of that goes hand in hand. I just think that, everybody said, they don't try to run it. They don't try to run it. And then when they do try to run it, they don't throw it. I mean, it just goes back and forth. It's like you just want to hit your head over the head.
No, I know. I've never complained about them not running it enough. Trust me. I just wanted to see them throw the ball more, because that's all we talked about leading into the week.
Let
and they did.
Let them go. Just let them
right.
go.
I mean, you were saying it. Have them throw 50 times. Who cares?
Well, I didn't expect it to be, 3 inches of rain.
But it didn't affect him.
I know he handled it because there was no wind as well. And he did throw 36 times. And, they completed and they stayed on the field and they got the third, they created the first downs and all the things that we have not seen. And, it was good for the young man to have that day, because you saw what I think Joe Douglas and everybody saw 3 years ago. They saw a kid who's got a great arm who could handle the inclement weather. And, he did make a couple goofy throws, but, he got away with them for whatever reason, maybe because of all the injuries on the Texan side. But, he's got to feel good this morning. He's got to know that he can do it. And now we get to watch the Dolphins tonight. They play the Titans while the Giants are playing the Packers. 2 Monday night games tonight, and they're going on simultaneously. So it will be interesting to see what the Dolphins look like tonight, and then if the Jet defense can slow down the Dolphins next week in Miami.
That is right. And the Dolphins are not going to be slowed down tonight. I mean, I think that they're going to run past the Titans like they do just about everybody else. I looked ahead with the spread for the Jet-Dolphin game. That's also a 13-point spread, so nobody really expects the Jets to keep up with Miami. And Miami, I'm pulling for you to be able to go down to the AFC Championship game in Miami with CBS.
Thank you. I appreciate
and they are, and that just to me, like, and if they're hosting that game, that means that they got a good shot to go to the Super Bowl, and that's the team I want in the AFC, representing the AFC in Las Vegas, because they're just so much fun.
Yeah.
So
you know who keeps hanging around though?
Well, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, they just keep hanging around and hanging around. They just find ways to win. We can end up being down there as well. The interesting thing about the schedule now is we have 4 games to go for most of the teams. Is that you got Miami visiting Baltimore in a couple weeks.
Yep.
If the Eagles win out. If the Eagles win their next 4 games, they have to go to Seattle next week. Then they have the Giants twice and Arizona. That's got to be the easiest schedule left. It's got to be.
Yep.
So if they win out, they will win the NFC East, even though they lost last night. Even though they lost last night, and even though Dallas right now is the leader in the NFC East, if both teams win out, the Philadelphia Eagles, by virtue of losing to the Jets as opposed to losing to the Cardinals, like the Cowboys did early on in the season, that will determine that the Eagles will win the NFC East.
Yeah, I saw that guy, that political guy, does all the election stuff that they put on.
Bill Hemmer?
No. The guy they put on NBC.
Oh, on NBC, okay.
That guy. And he was breaking down all the numbers and this and that, and how if the Eagles, this is before the game, that even if the Eagles lost, they still had something like a 40% chance to get the number 1 seed.
Because of their schedule and everything. But as we wake up this morning, San Francisco is number 1 in the NFC. Mm-hmm. Dallas is number 2 in the NFC.
Kornacki is the guy that I'm talking about.
Yeah, Kornacki. Kornacki. He uses Nostradamus like I got here in front of me right now.
Yeah. Kornacki.
Right, so San Francisco, by the way, they smashed both the Cowboys and the Eagles.
That's right.
Just absolutely wore them out, and Brock Purdy played another great game yesterday. And there's this whole thing, out there because there are some morons in television and radio that talk about how guys are system quarterbacks. I don't know if Al does that when he's here on. I don't think he ever does that.
No, Al's not talking about system quarterbacks.
Like, system quarterbacks. You play for San Francisco. He's a system quarterback. Shut the F up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Guy's got to go out there. He throws the ball over 15 yards, probably more so than every other quarterback in the league. And he just puts it right on the guy's hands. And then, of course, he's got athletes to make guys miss when they catch the ball. But, my God, the guy is right there in the MVP race. He's having a great season. If anybody watched him throw the deep ball to Deebo Samuel yesterday, the deep ball to George Kittle yesterday, every ball was right in their hands.
Well, I do have to say, though, this is not – also Deebo has to get a ton of credit for that, too. Now, Purdy put it out there for him to get it, but Deebo turned on the Jets to get that ball.
Supposed to do.
I know, but I mean, it wasn't just like perfect. They worked together. Like Brock Purdy's like, I'm going to get it out there, and Deebo's going to go get it.
If you will never hear another quarterback say system quarterback.
Yeah.
All you're going to hear is other quarterbacks extolling the virtue of his poise, his accuracy, and his ability to see the field and play the game from the quarterback position the way the game is supposed to be played. He's not running all over the place. He's not, doing miraculous plays like, say, Josh Allen does or Patrick Mahomes has to do. I mean, he sits in there and he throws the ball from the pocket, kind of like Dak does, kind of like Tua does, and that's the way the game is supposed to be played. Tom Brady played the game that way. Peyton Manning played the game that way. Joe Montana played the game that way. The great Kenny Anderson played the game that way. That's the way the game is supposed to be played. That's what it's supposed to be looking like when you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I know he's got weapons, and they've got a great defense and a great system and all of that stuff. But, you got to go out there, and you got to be able to think what happened if everybody's just a system quarterback, then how come the 49ers, once Brock Purdy went down in the championship game, couldn't even move the ball 10 feet?
Exactly.
And then he had to come back in, obviously, when Josh Johnson got hurt as well.
Tua, who's running the same offense, is he a system quarterback? I guess he is.
No, absolutely not.
And by the way, Dallas is running a very similar offense, kind of West Coast concepts and things of that nature. System quarterback?
No.
I mean, my God, these guys are playing great. They're playing awesome. And if you hear any dope on television tell you that they're a system quarterback, just turn it off. It's not worth the listen because they have no idea what they're talking about.
Man, I was just looking because I'm locked in on the Dolphins.
You are locked in.
I watched the end of the third episode of the Hard Knocks in season last night too, in between the end of the 4 o'clocks and the kickoff of the Sunday night game. So they've got, of course, winnable games at home, hosting the Titans and the Jets. But their last 3 games, now 2 of them are home, but the Cowboys go to them. That's a big one. That's a little Super Bowl preview potentially. Yeah. Then they got that Ravens game, which could determine the number 1 seed. And then they got the Bills coming to them the last game of the season. That's going to be a little tricky for you to get down to Miami now that I'm looking at that.
Yeah, I know. It could be Baltimore.
Oh, for the love of God. Do not have the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl.
I
don't want to see the Baltimore Ravens.
Don't you want me to use public transportation as they get ready to tax us for driving into New York City to go to work?
Yeah, I'm just talking. I don't want the Ravens to be in the Super Bowl because that's just boring. I know Lamar Jackson is a really exciting player, but the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl, it's no juice. None whatsoever.
You say whatever you want.
And we work for CBS. We need juice. Baltimore's a no juice team. Miami juice, Kansas City obviously juice. Those are the juice teams.
You don't want
Baltimore,
Jacksonville in there?
No juice there either.
How about the Cleveland Browns led by Joe Flacco?
No.
Who is now the quarterback for the rest of the year, according to Kevin Stefanski, his head coach.
That's right.
Great. He's playing great.
I mean, if Buffalo went on a run, juice. Miami, Kansas City.
I think Buffalo is on a run.
I mean, well, they need to, but they're still in the hunt. They're not even there yet.
But I feel like, Josh Allen the last 3 games has been the Josh Allen that we saw in week 2, 3, and 4. Thanks so much for watching the video.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content.